Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
So a guy walks into a bar, as often happens in these jokes. And it's pretty deserted. It's early on a Monday night. He sits down, he orders a beer, and it's very quiet. Then he hears a voice saying, "You look amazing." Who said that? It's like, maybe my mind is playing tricks on me. It's like, that tie matches your eyes perfectly. So what is going on here? About that time, the bartender came back up and he said, "I hear a voice complimenting me." And he said, oh, yeah. That's the peanuts. They're complimentary. I know. But what if life was loving you like that all the time? What if life already is supporting you, reaching toward you with all that you need for a life of fulfillment, wholeness, happiness, freedom, success? What if that were true? How would we live if we knew that truth? It is Thanksgiving week, and we're going to talk about gratitude today, and I just have to share that today is 19 years of continuous sobriety for me. 19 years. So when people say, "To God be the glory," that is absolutely true. All I did was show up one day at a time, and by the grace of God, have not had to put any alcohol or drugs in my body for 19 years. And that doesn't work for somebody like me unless there is a divine intervention, unless there is some power in life that is reaching out, that is supportive and uplifting and healing. Unless that's true, I wouldn't be here today. And I know many of you have not experienced addiction, but there's something in your life, there's some point of resistance to the goodness of life, or you wouldn't be coming to church because you would have it all figured out. You would have transcended and moved on to another experience. But you're here today because there is a calling. You know that life is meant to be good. You know that there is a greater something calling to you. And we gather in spiritual community to remind each other of this truth. That we are meant to be blessed, that we are already whole, perfect, and complete because we are expressions of God's own nature. This is who we are. I lost a dear friend about 3 weeks ago. She's a musician. She's been here on this stage and in the pyramid, Erica Luckett. She was she and her musical partner and life partner, Lisa Ferrero, they're incredible people, souls, musicians, and it's always a reminder, right, that everything here is temporary. Whenever I do a memorial service, I always end by reminding people that this moment of celebrating a life that in the human realm has ended, has completed, it's an opportunity for all of us to remember that this is a limited time offer. How are we using our time in this body to experience the good of God? And how much of our life are we spending in resistance, in fear, in struggle, in pain? Erica has a song that she wrote called Awe. And I think, we're talking about gratitude, but awe is like one step more. That's like where it's just so good, you're just kind of like, like, what do I say? But it is just so big. In the song, she says that in every square inch of blood in our body, there are 70 billion cells working together for my health and for my good. It's a conspiracy of life. The hook of the song says, if we're not in awe, we're not paying attention. If we're not seeing life as this wonderful opportunity and invitation to experience the magnificence of our own being and the connectedness of all life, we're missing it somehow. We're reading our own bad press. We're believing in our own self-condemnation and our thoughts of not enough and lack. And guess what? That's the good news and the bad news. The bad news is that you're missing it. The good news is you're at choice. It's easy to be grateful for something, amen? Like we get a blessing, what's our response? Thank you. Thank you. That is transactional gratitude. I say thanks. We're going to a deeper level than that today. We're talking about volitional gratitude. I choose, using my will and volition, to step into a space of thanksgiving regardless of condition. When the Apostle Paul said, give thanks in all things, for this is the will of God for you. This is God's will for you. He never said, give thanks for all things. It's not based upon a transaction of I get my good and then I say thank you. No matter what happens, I place myself in the position of giving thanks. 19 years ago yesterday, the conditions of my life did not support a very prosperous future for me. And yet, 19 years ago today was the first day of a new beginning, free of addiction. That's my story, one of my stories of this idea of stepping into a new choice and a new relationship with reality, but there are many. And the invitation is always for us to move. God really has a message for us. I can feel it. Yes. We're invited to move. It's really just shifting the way we're seeing it from it's all terrible and happening to me to life is good and happening for me. And when we realign our thoughts, then God's got something to work with. When we open up, we let go of our resistance. You know, Michael Beckwith says there are 4 kinds of pain in this world, right? Resistance, and, oh, you're paying attention. That when we move in the flow, and that is a choice we make. It is a choice we make to live from the truth of our oneness with God, or to live from the space of seeming separation and lack. It is our choice. I've taught many times on the story of the Exodus from Egypt of the Hebrew children. It's a powerful story of moving from one place of being confined and constricted by life into a space of freedom and promise. It's one of those great stories of humanity that tells how it can be for us individually and collectively. That's why we come back to it again. As a matter of fact, there's a whole theological school. It's called liberation theology, which this Bible story of the Exodus from Egypt is the central teaching. And this liberation theology takes as its premise is that that people are oppressed and must be set free. And this inspires positive social action based upon love and the common good of all humanity. It does amazing things in our world, this idea of liberation theology. And in Unity, we support that work in the world. We see our equality and we want it to be made. We want justice. We want love. You know, justice, as Martin Luther King said, is love in public. We want all people to be uplifted and honored in their humanity. And in Unity, we really take it up personally. Where am I oppressing myself? Where am I in bondage to my own negative thought? Where am I in bondage, in slavery to my own addictive thinking? And where can I be set free and find that land of promise? So the story is long. You've seen the movie, right? A lot of things happen. It takes a long time to get them moving out of Egypt. The Egyptians come after them, they cross the Red Sea, and then they move right into the Promised Land. Am I right? Do you remember how long? 40 years they wandered in the desert. They needed some GPS. God's positioning system. 40 is a number in, these numbers are not literal, but 40 is symbolic of the time necessary for complete transformation. But they were about ready. They had gotten there. They found it. And Moses called together a representative from each of the 12 tribes and asked them to go and scout the land of Canaan and see what they could see. And he asked some specific questions. How's the fruit? It's in the Bible. He said he knew that it was time for the first grapes to be harvested. Go check out the is the soil good? Are there people there? Do they live in big cities? Are they strong? Do they have big armies? Go find out what's happening there. How is this land that we've been led to? And Joshua and Caleb led 10 other scouts, and they went out into the land, and they discovered many things, and they came back. There's a story, in my children's Bible I had as a kid, there was a picture from this story of two men with a pole and one gigantic cluster of grapes hanging from it. I don't know if that actually happened, but it's an image that has stayed with me. That they had gone into the land and discovered bounty and abundance beyond compare. It was a bigger life that was calling to them than they had ever experienced. Because these people had been enslaved, working 7 days, all day, with no day off, no pay. They were enslaved in a system of struggle and oppression. And why is this story relevant to us? Because we have been enslaved in a system of struggle and oppression in our own thinking. We think life is difficult. We think that we're never going to be good enough to get what we want. We're never going to have that experience of love and fulfillment and connection. That is a system of oppression in our thoughts. And the idea that there is something so beautiful and magnificent stirs our hope, gives us something to move towards. So Joshua and Caleb report that the land is just as you said, Moses. It is flowing with milk and honey. There are some people there, though. Now, this is not a tale of empire and conquest. This is instead metaphorical and metaphysical. The land that you need to occupy to fully embody your potential for life of fulfillment must first be cleared of the unlawful occupants. And this is your belief system, your old ideas about the way life works, and all of that stuff. It's those people, those thoughts, those ideas are already living in your land of Canaan. But Joshua and Caleb said, we can do this because God has called us to it. This is ours. Now, the other 10 had a different report. They said, ain't no way. They got big people. The descendants of Anak, who was a giant, saying they are big. And they have big cities and big walls and a lot of people. And as a matter of fact, we need to elect new leaders and go back to Egypt. When you are called to live a life of expansion and increase, you will be given every opportunity to go back into bondage. And it will seem like a good idea sometimes to, I didn't have much, but I knew where everything was. And, have you ever heard the phrase, you can never go home again? In the 12 steps, they talk about it this way, that there's nothing worse than a head full of AA and a belly full of beer. You can't go back to the way that you've been. You can't unknow what you know. And I'm here to tell you, life is good. And there is an expanded version of your life that is already given to you. And you must be the one to do the work, to conquer the old thoughts, to evict anything that stands in the way of you being the light of God, as Jesus said you are. And this is work. 19 years that I've been sober. You know how I did it? One day at a time. I had some days that were a struggle. I had some days that were joyful and expansive, but it was just one day at a time. Not of my own power, but of a higher power, the grace of God being sufficient. And when I could get out of the way, follow some simple instructions, take some simple actions, one day led to another to another. If I could have seen, if somehow I had some magical mirror and I could look ahead to 19 years and see this day, I would never have believed this possible. But something new, something in me knew that there was an expanded life waiting for me. And guess what? Something in me today knows that there is still an expanded life waiting for me. And I still have people holding the land that ain't supposed to be there. This work continues. We are here to reveal who we are so that we can find our place in the world that is a fit for our gift, so that we can receive the kind of fulfilling experiences and connection that is ours. And our gratitude and our awareness is the way that we choose to see the truth. Because the people of Israel, they could have chosen to believe the 2 or the 10. Guess which they believed? They believed the 10. Because it is easier to believe in lack and limitation because we've got a lot of experience of that. And so the people cried out like, "Oh my God, what have you done to us? You've led us. It would be better that we die in bondage than die in warfare." And they wanted to elect new leaders and go back home. The story goes on. This is in the 13th chapter of Numbers. I read like 9 chapters in Numbers this morning, and have fun with that if you're called to it. But there was more grumbling and more complaining and more dissent. And the basic gist of the story was that none of those who were born in bondage were able to move into the promised land. Because this represents for us metaphysically that you cannot enter into the truth of your being with the consciousness that still believes in the lies. Einstein said you cannot solve the problem with the same mind that created it. You cannot forgive with the same mind that believes you've been wronged. You must be willing to open, to allow, to surrender. And something then is possible for you and for me so that we can step into this truth of who we are. You've heard the phrase, fake it till you make it? My friend, Reverend Bernardo Montserrat, he wrote a book called Faith It Till You Make It. And I would even say, faith it till you reveal it. You already are it, but you must walk by faith and not by sight. Every day. Keep doing those practices and those things that you know will align you with truth. Keep that gratitude journal. Come to this church. Take these classes. Read the spiritual material. Talk to your friends in honest, open spiritual relationship. This is the way that we faith it till we make it. And over time, we'll see everything changes. So, any other achieving types in here? I have read this story for many, many years, and I've always thought, yes, go conquer the land, drive out the giants, get the grapes. Yes, go make it happen. And so everything is a struggle until you get it all solved and figured out, and then you're there. Anybody else have that experience? Thank you for raising your hand. I see you. We'll talk later. This summer, we had Karen Russo, who was here for a part of our Adventures in Faith. She spoke at the Big Sky Retreat, and she teaches a lot about this idea of divine masculine, divine feminine energy. And she teaches really around prosperity and abundance, but it's applicable to all areas of life. And she says that it is the divine masculine that is about intention, choice, and action. Conquer the land. Go get the grapes. And the divine feminine is about awareness, gratitude, the ability to experience satisfaction. That last one, I had never heard that one before. Now, I've been friends with Karen Russo for about 12, 15 years. I've heard her speak a dozen times. I've read her book. And I said, did you just add that part? And she said, no, it's always been there. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. My consciousness couldn't see it. Because I have been so focused on achieving as my identity, conquering, overcoming, that when I finally get it right, then I'm like, see me? Here I am. And don't look at all this stuff over here. When I found out they gave grades in school, A's, only A's. I was hooked on achievement in first grade. They say ministry is an opportunity for you to grow up in public. I'm having an experience of a new revelation of God's good, and I want to share it with you. What if it was all okay just as it is? What if I could experience the satisfaction of life even when it's not all put together yet, the way I hope it will be someday? I used to take piano lessons for years, and I was a good student because I liked to achieve. And when I would get a particularly challenging classical piece, I hated the process of learning it. I mean, the mistakes drove me crazy. The difficulty of it, getting my fingers to do, and the frustration, I mean, it was horrible for me. Type A, achieving addict, as I mentioned. But then when I finally conquered it, and I could play it and get the applause, it was wonderful. And so the question I am asking of myself today, what if I could love the process of learning the music? What if I could love the process of learning the music? What if I could be okay with not having everything exactly right? What if I could be okay with people seeing that I don't always get straight A's? The divine feminine invites us to an experience of feeling satisfied in life, just as it is. I used to be afraid that the reason I'd never seen that in Karen's teaching before, because I don't think I've ever let myself feel satisfied. Because here's the trick, even when I would get the song pretty much learned, how many perfect performances do you think I gave in my life that really met the standards of my inner critic? 2, maybe, that I can think of. If you're not satisfied when things are a mess, you're not going to be satisfied when they're neat. And what this invites us into is an experience of allowing, opening. That just where we are, the fullness of life is available to us. I'm not suggesting we make agreement with struggle, but you will struggle. We're wired for it, as Brene Brown says. I'm not suggesting that we make agreement with difficulty, but I am suggesting that even before you get there, wherever the heck that is, the promised land is already within you. And so this Thanksgiving week, I invite you to live your life one day at a time, loving it just as it is, even with that kid who's acting crazy. Loving it just as it is. And trusting that there is an intelligence and a wisdom in life that is even now rearranging the pieces in ways you cannot see or comprehend. And you will find yourself in a new land one day and not even really know how you got there. How the heck? I have not been repeating my oft-repeated phrase as much lately, so I'm going to say it again. Something is happening here. Truly, there is a quickening. There is something coming alive in this community, having completed this 7-week Adventures in Faith, hearing what people are discovering in these small groups and the connections that are being formed, the authentic love and friendship that people are having, people who are getting these principles on new levels and stepping in and making changes in their lives, in their homes, in their world, in their work, in their families. Something is happening. And some of us wait on the sidelines until we get perfect before we step into the game. What I'm inviting you this week is to step in. Love life just as it is. Love yourself just as you are. Yeah, I used to resist satisfaction because I thought if I ever experienced satisfaction, I would quit trying, I would quit achieving, I would quit growing, I would just sit on the couch and eat Fritos. What I'm finding in these past weeks and months is I'm experimenting with allowing myself to feel the satisfaction of the divine feminine is that I've actually become more productive, more motivated, less stressed, more trusting of the good of God. I wish you could see what I see when I see you. If no one has told you today how beautiful you are, how lovable you are, I'm here to tell you, I love you. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to be your minister. God bless you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.